Chinese Taoist culture has a long and storied history, spanning thousands of years, with many eminent figures emerging over time. Throughout the long river of history, numerous records about Taoism have either vanished into the dust of history or drifted into the countryside. Once a glorious tradition, Taoism has now mostly turned into a cultural tourism attraction. There was a Taoist priest whose life was legendary, tumultuous, and filled with helplessness. He saved many lives, including mine and my aunt's. I heard about the life of this Taoist priest from many people in my hometown. This is the story of the last Taoist priest of the life of Zhao Wenbin, a tale brought forth from a small story about a man. Taoist is his surname, and it is recorded that 100 family surnames are such as one of the Chinese surnames, ranking 397 in 100 family surnames. One origin is from the Jian clan, descendants of the Yan emperor. The son of Yu Jing of Kai in the spring and autumn period was granted the fief of Zhao, and his descendants took the fief as their surname, becoming the Zhao family. Later, the word Vaika was removed, becoming the Zhao surname. Another origin is from the Mai clan. In the spring and autumn period, a nobleman of the Chu state was granted the fief of Zhao, and his descendants took the fief name as their surname. In the mountainous area of western Zhejiang, there is a village called Hong Village. In this village lived a Zhu family. The head of the family was a carpenter, skilled in woodworking, and was known as Zhu Lubin. His family traditionally made coffins for others, and he naturally inherited this trade. Although he had good skills, his work was considered a death-related business, so few girls from ordinary families were willing to marry him. After many twists and turns, he finally married a wife from a neighboring village through a matchmaker. In that era, contraception was underdeveloped, and in 10 years, they had 3 daughters and 2 sons. As the family grew, expenses increased. The couple discussed and decided to send his wife for sterilization. Zhu Lubin was my grandfather. 10 years later, unexpectedly, my grandmother became pregnant again. My grandfather was both happy and worried. How could his wife, who had been sterilized, become pregnant? Her belly grew day by day, and after 10 months, she gave birth. To his surprise, at 40 years old, he had another daughter. He named this youngest daughter Zhu, who was my aunt. That year was 1977. My grandfather was overjoyed at having a daughter in his old age. On the day of her full month, he held a big banquet, and the villagers came to celebrate. Amidst the festivities, a Taoist priest in ragged robes and carrying a bag of 8 trigrams passed by the Zhu family's house. Someone with a good heart called out to the priest, suggesting that the host family had just had a baby girl and asked the priest to read her fortune. The Taoist priest agreed readily, glanced at the baby in the swaddling clothes, and immediately performed a calculation, showing a look of great surprise. He called the father, Suruwan, into the inner room and whispered, "Master, what joy at having a daughter is certainly a cause for celebration, but I have something to say, though I am unsure whether I should." A Lord Carpenter, my grandfather was reasonable and that, saying, "You Taoists, just say what you want to say, regardless of whether it's good or bad. Once the banquet starts, I will treat you to a drink." The Taoist looked at Suruwan and said, "Your daughter is beautiful, but she may not be easy to raise." My grandfather got angry upon hearing this. He had just had a daughter, and this unknown Taoist was already saying such ominous things. He pushed the Taoist, saying, "You Taoists have no manners. How can you say such reckless things?" The Taoist, already in tattered clothes, had his clothes torn by the push, and a copper lump fell from his pocket, rolling to the ground. The commotion startled my grandmother, who was entertaining guests in another room. She came over to see a ragged Taoist entangled with her husband. Hearing the story from my mother, it seems my grandmother was quite a character. Without asking for the reason, she scolded Zhu Lubin for his rudeness and then apologized to the Taoist. She even took out a needle and thread to mend his old clothes, insisting that he stay for a meal. The Taoist couldn't refuse and joined the banquet with the others. After a few drinks, his face turned red, and he started boasting about being the head of Mashan, proficient in Taoist arts, which drew laughter from the guests. Not sure if the Taoist was drunk, but when asked again about the baby's fortune, he reiterated, "This little girl is a shortly child, hard praise, and may phrase misfortune." The guests were taken aback. How could this Taoist, after being treated well, dare to speak so rudely? Especially my grandfather, whose anger flared up again. He rushed into the house, grabbed an axe, and was about to strike, but was fortunately stopped by the crowd amidst a flurry of curses. This time, my grandmother heard everything clearly and felt humiliated. She shouted at the Taoist, "Where did this white Taoist come from? I kindly hosted you, yet you cursed my daughter." He died. Surprisingly, the Taoist was not angered by the insult. He touched his chest, looked at the sky, glanced at the ground, and said, "Master, don't be angry. I am just telling the truth. This little girl may not live past 9 years. If she faces misfortune, then you can come parent county. We will do finely." With that, he bowed to the crowd and left, leaving everyone in stunned silence and my grandfather's family fuming. Although everyone advised not to take it seriously, it left a shadow in my somewhat superstitious grandmother's heart. 9 years later, my aunt grew up healthy, smart, and very beautiful, with a pair of big, bright eyes that everyone adored. Gradually, my grandmother's family forgot the Taoist words from 9 years ago. In rural areas, it was common to hold large funerals for the dead, known as street-food funerals, where the whole village would help with the arrangements. Everyone would drink and eat heartily, making it quite lively. Every family would prepare a dish of white tofu, Hence the funeral feast was also called Bovumi. In the summer of 1986, the same day I was born, an old man died in Hon village. In those relatively boyish times, a joyful fear meant a chance to enjoy some good food. My grandfather and grandmother, along with my aunt, went to the tofu meal. My aunt ate a lot of oily food at the feast. After the banquet, the three of them headed home under the starry sky. The house was about 2 miles from the funeral site, with a reservoir on the way, about 300 meters long. When I was a child, I often sneaked there to swim and got caught by my grandmother for scolding without knowing why. The stretch of road had no houses. It usually took about 10 minutes to walk the 2 miles, and it was a path they often walked. That night, the moon and stars were exceptionally bright, illuminating the path in a pale light, making a flashlight unnecessary. In the summer countryside, fireflies always attracted children. My aunt chased the fireflies, laughing as she ran after the flickering lights. My grandfather and grandmother followed not far behind, smiling at the child. My grandfather smoked a dead tobacco pipe and said to my grandmother, "Who said on butter is hard to raise? Since her birth, she hasn't even had a minor illness. The Taoist must have been a fraud." My grandmother reminded my aunt to run slowly, and soon they reached home. Initially, my aunt slept with my grandparents. As she grew older, she was arranged to sleep with her third sister. My grandfather had 4 daughters and 2 sons. My eldest aunt, eldest uncle, and my mother were already married, leaving only my third aunt, my youngest aunt, and my youngest uncle at home. Before going to bed, my youngest aunt told her third sister about the delicious food at the feast, making her sister envious. Since my youngest aunt's birth, any good things in the family were reserved for her. For example, when eating corn, my youngest aunt always got the top part, while my third aunt got the tail end. But my youngest aunt was indeed lovable. My third aunt washed her feet and put her to bed. Accompanied by her sister, my youngest aunt quickly fell asleep, until a scream in the middle of the night shattered the 9 years of peace in the Zhu family.